Night falls on London, and Tower Bridge stands illuminated over the dark ribbon of the Thames. Its twin Gothic towers glow in blue-white light after modern refurbishments, their reflections dancing on the water's surface. Above, the pointed turrets and golden finials catch the eye, echoing the medieval Tower of London nearby. Below, late traffic hums across its span while a river breeze drifts through the stone arches. In this calm, cinematic moment, the bridge is more than just a road. It is a living monument, linking London's past and present. Tower Bridge is instantly recognizable, a symbol of London's heritage and engineering prowess. This iconic drawbridge, completed in the Victorian era, continues to serve as a vital crossing and a cultural emblem. In the following documentary journey, we chronologically explore its story, from 19th century conception and bold Victorian engineering, through its grand opening and mechanical marvels to the upgrades that keep it relevant today. We will walk through foggy Victorian streets and busy ship lanes, descend into clanking engine rooms, and emerge into the modern skyline, all in a calm, historically grounded narrative. Let us begin where the story truly starts, with a city in desperate need of a new bridge. In the mid-19th century, London was the world's largest city, bursting at the seams. The River Thames sliced the metropolis in two, and for those living in the fast-growing East End, crossing the river was a daily ordeal. By the late 1800s, nearly 40% of London's population lived east of London Bridge, as if the populations of Manchester and Liverpool were on opposite banks. Yet east of that old stone London Bridge, no road bridge existed. Every workday morning, an endless tide of people, carts, and livestock pushed across London Bridge, causing dreadful congestion. Contemporary accounts described a crush so dense that it might take 2 hours to get from one side to the other. The only alternative near the Tower of London was a small pedestrian tunnel, the Tower Subway, but that narrow passage proved inadequate and soon went out of business. By the 1870s, the situation was untenable. The East End's industry was booming, and the Port of London upstream of the Tower was one of the busiest in the world, with thousands of ships anchoring in the Pool of London each year. How could a new bridge be built downstream of London Bridge without choking off this vital shipping artery? Petitions poured in from businesses and residents urging the city to find a solution. In 1876, their calls were heard. On 10th February 1876, the Corporation of London established the Special Bridge or Subway Committee to investigate building a crossing east of the Tower of London. The committee's challenge was daunting. They needed a design that allowed both the unimpeded passage of tall-masted ships and the efficient flow of road traffic. In effect, Victorian London demanded a bridge that could open for the river and yet be a permanent roadway for the city. The committee launched a public design competition, inviting engineers and architects to propose solutions for this unique bridge. The response was extraordinary. Over 50 designs were submitted for consideration. The proposals ranged from ingenious to fantastical, each attempting to solve the riddle of spanning the Thames without blocking it. One concept by engineer George Barclay Bruce envisioned a rolling bridge, an ambitious mechanism that could somehow roll or fold out of the way of ships. Another, by inventor Frederick Barnett, imagined a duplex figure-8 bridge, effectively two looping roadways that would allow ships and carriages to pass simultaneously without interference. Perhaps the most dramatic was a design by Sir Joseph Bazalgette, famed designer of London's sewers. He proposed a high-level single-span bridge so tall that no ship could ever hit it. His bridge would have towered over the Thames, dwarfing any vessel of the day and eliminating the need for moving parts. However, his plan was deemed impractical. The approaches would be steep and costly, and such a sky-high span risked isolating pedestrians. Notably, many early submissions did not feature the twin towers we associate with Tower Bridge today. The name Tower Bridge originally simply denoted proximity to the Tower of London, rather than a bridge with towers. Indeed, some proposals looked nothing like the iconic form eventually chosen. As the committee sifted through designs, they kept returning to the idea of a movable bridge, one that could open when needed and close to form a roadway. By 1884, an emerging favorite combined practicality with a nod to London's architectural heritage. This design was submitted by the city architect, Sir Horace Jones, working with a talented civil engineer, Sir John Wolfe Barry. Jones cleverly submitted his plan under a pseudonym, an amateur, to ensure it was judged on merit, not his reputation. His proposed solution was a bascule bridge flanked by suspension spans, essentially a drawbridge in the middle with conventional spans on either side. Each roadway half at the center could tip up like a giant seesaw, creating a 200-foot wide passage for ships. This concept met the core requirement. When opened, it offered full clearance for tall ships, and when closed, it provided a low-level direct road link for carts and pedestrians. After 8 years of debate, the Special Bridge Committee finally approved this design in October 1884, and it was swiftly endorsed by Parliament. The era of procrastination was over. Tower Bridge was about to be born. Parliament passed the Tower Bridge Act in 1885, laying down conditions for the new structure. The design, now often referred to as the Tower Bridge in documents of the time, was fixed in law, a central opening span of 200 feet, with a clearance of 135 feet above the water when raised. The bridge, when closed, would have a clearance of 29 feet at high tide, enough for barges but not tall ships. Each flanking span between the towers and riverbanks would stretch 270 feet. Crucially, the act also stipulated that the bridge's appearance must harmonize with the architecture of the Tower of London. In an age proud of its medieval heritage, this meant the engineers could not build a starkly modern iron structure that clashed with the nearby 11th century fortress. The bridge would need a Gothic dress on its modern frame. Jones and Barry's plan rose to that challenge. Their bridge would be a true hybrid, part suspension bridge, with chains supporting the side spans, and part bascule bridge with the central leaves pivoting. Two mighty towers would anchor the composition, Gothic in style with pointed arches, ornate cornices, and stone turrets that visually echoed the turrets of the Tower of London. But beneath this historical facade, the bridge would be a marvel of contemporary engineering. Inside each tower, a steel framework provided the real support, and the stone exterior was essentially a protective and decorative shell. Over 11,000 tons of steel went into the skeleton of the towers and high-level walkways, which were then clad in Cornish granite and Portland stone for strength and aesthetics. This blending of old and new was a deliberate choice. The stone not only shielded the metal from the elements, but also ensured the bridge would satisfy Victorian tastes and the Parliament's mandate for a harmonious design. Tragically, Sir Horace Jones did not live to see his vision fully realized. He died suddenly in 1887, just a year into construction. The project's leadership fell entirely to Sir John Wolfe Barry. Barry, along with his key team members, including Henry Mark Brunel, son of the great Isambard Kingdom Brunel, as assistant engineer and Edward Crutwell as resident engineer, carried the torch forward. They also refined some of Jones's plans. For instance, Jones's original idea for an arch spanning between the towers, seen in early illustrations, was abandoned due to concerns that tall ship masts would strike it. In its place, the design adopted the high-level walkways we see today, open spans between the towers that pose no obstacle to rigging. Barry's team even enhanced the Gothic detailing under the guidance of architect George Stephenson, making the bridge even more ornately Victorian. With the design settled and legal approval granted, all that remained was the colossal task of building Tower Bridge, a feat of engineering that would push late Victorian technology and manpower to their limits. Ground was broken for Tower Bridge on 22nd of April 1886. The site at the Tower of London's edge buzzed with activity as workers prepared to sink the massive foundations into the riverbed. To support the two great towers, enormous piers had to be constructed underwater. Workers floated out huge iron caissons, essentially giant bottomless boxes, and sank them into position. Once in place, water was pumped out of these caissons, creating a dry work chamber on the riverbed. Inside, men known as sandhogs labored in damp, pressurized air, digging out mud and clay by hand. Above them on the open river, steam-powered cranes whirred and groaned to haul away the spoil. Slowly, over months, the first pier descended almost 8 meters, 26 feet below the Thames, until it rested on solid ground. The second pier could not be started until the first was finished and the temporary staging removed to keep a navigable channel open for ships. This careful choreography meant the foundations alone took years. The two piers, containing some 70,000 tons of concrete, were not completed until 1890. Once the massive piers were in place, the visible bridge began to rise. From 1890 onward, a forest of cranes and scaffolding sprouted on the banks of the Thames. Piece by piece, the steel skeleton of Tower Bridge took shape. Riveters swung hammers high above the water, fixing thousands of rivets into the iron plates and girders. The noise of metal on metal rang out over the river, while below tugboats chugged past, carrying materials to site. Onlookers could already discern the form of two stout towers growing skyward. Each tower was built around four huge steel columns, one at each corner, which would later support the walkways and suspension chains. As the framework climbed higher, the towers were tied together by horizontal struts and cross-bracing, giving them rigidity. Victorian photographers captured the spectacle. By 1892, images show the towers standing as skeletal iron, giants connected by temporary gantries and cranes arm-like atop them. Work on the high-level walkways and the bascule sections proceeded in tandem. The walkways, 42 meters, about 138 feet above the river, were originally built as cantilevers extending from each tower. Later they would be joined and in 1960 subtly reinforced with discrete suspension rods. The bascules, the moving road spans, were constructed in the open position. Each bascule was a gigantic hinged arm extending from the river piers. They were fitted with enormous pivot joints and waiting to receive their counterweights. By late 1893, the main structural work was nearing completion. On 31st January 1894, workers set the last stone in the South Tower's upper turret, marking the end of major masonry work. The bridge's outline, towers, chains, walkways, and road spans was complete, though much remained to be finished internally. Inside the towers and in adjacent engine houses, engineers installed the heart of the bridge, its hydraulic lifting machinery. Huge steam boilers were mounted to provide power. Twin steam engines with gleaming pistons and 9-foot flywheels were assembled, their purpose to drive pumping equipment that would generate the hydraulic pressure to lift the bascules. 6 accumulators, iron cylinders storing water under high pressure, were set up like giant batteries, ready to accumulate the energy and release it on command. The Victorian machinery, with its pipes, valves, and gauges, had an almost steampunk grandeur. Workers laid wooden decking across the roadways and installed the ornamental details on the exterior, the Victorian Gothic trim that disguised vents and chimneys, one cleverly made to look like a lamppost. By mid-1894, Tower Bridge was essentially finished and had cost the city about £1.184 million, a huge sum then, equivalent to over £170 million today. In truth, with various land purchases and adjustments, the final cost may have been closer to £1.6 million. It had taken 8 years, the efforts of 5 major contractors, and the daily toil of 432 construction workers on site to bring Tower Bridge into being. The result was a bridge like no other, an unprecedented combination of industrial might and fairy tale design, now ready to be unveiled to the world. Tower Bridge on its opening day, 30 June 1894. Crowds gathered along the new roadway and on boats in the Thames as the bascules were lowered, ready to lift for the first official vessel. The Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VII, presided over the inauguration at noon, accompanied by Princess Alexandra. On the day of the grand opening, London awoke to celebrate its newest landmark. June 30th, 1894 was declared the official opening day of Tower Bridge, and excitement rippled through the city. Flags fluttered from the bridge's turrets and along the Thames embankments. A crowd of thousands assembled, from ladies with parasols and gentlemen in top hats to local dock workers and curious children perched on parents' shoulders. At 12 noon, the Prince of Wales, acting on behalf of Queen Victoria, formally opened the bridge. With ceremonial flourish, he and Princess Alexandra stepped forward to an ornate lever. Accounts vary, some say a simple signal was given, and the great bascule spans of Tower Bridge were raised for the first time in an official capacity. Below on the river, the very first vessel to pass was the harbor master's small steamboat, aptly named Daisy. As Daisy glided through the gap between the towers, whistles and horns of ships sounded in celebration, and a cheer went up from the assembled crowds. The age of Tower Bridge had begun. In the days immediately following, the public was allowed to experience the bridge up close. On July 9, 1894, Tower Bridge opened from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. exclusively for pedestrians, free of charge. An astonishing 141,000 people crossed the span on foot that day. Imagine the scene. A constant stream of Londoners strolling across the broad roadway suspended over the Thames, marveling at the views and the bridge's ornate features. Newspapers reported impromptu races among spirited youths to be the very first to sprint from one end to the other. The lower-level road deck, surfaced with wood blocks for the comfort of horses, resounded with the clatter of footsteps and laughter. Up above, the high-level pedestrian walkways also opened, offering an even loftier vantage point, though many found the 206-step climb too much effort, except when the bascules were raised. After the initial novelty, Tower Bridge settled into daily use as an indispensable artery. By late July 1894, it was open around the clock, and an estimated 8,000 horse-drawn vehicles crossed each day, alongside some 60,000 pedestrians on foot. The relief to East London's congestion was immediate and palpable. No longer did carts from the South Bank need to detour miles upstream to London Bridge. They could now cross directly near the docks, saving hours. The pool of London shipping traffic also continued unabated. The bridge was lifted whenever a tall-masted ship needed to enter or leave upstream. In its first year of operation, Tower Bridge opened an incredible 6,000-plus times, an average of 17 times a day, to accommodate river traffic. It was by far the most sophisticated bascule bridge of its era, and Londoners took great pride in this marvel. Not everyone was immediately charmed by the bridge's appearance. Some Victorian critics sniffed that its blend of styles was awkward. The Pall Mall Gazette, for instance, remarked on a variegated ugliness about the new bridge, but such opinions were drowned out by the general admiration. The bridge quickly became a beloved fixture of the London skyline, and artists, photographers, and postcard printers embraced it as a quintessential image of the city. In Guildhall, the painter William L. Willey's grand canvas of the opening of Tower Bridge captured the scene with impressionistic drama. Tower Bridge was born into the age of photography and even early film, ensuring its prominence in the visual record of the 20th century to come.